Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our task force for our final task force for the state workforce retirement. And I will take this opportunity to first open the floor to my co-chair, Senator Kushner, as well as Representative Aurora, and I do believe, yes, Senator May Flexer for welcoming remarks. And Senator Kushner, you have the floor at this time.
Thank you, Representative Porter. I just will briefly say that I'm looking forward to today's meeting where we will be voting on the recommendations. I think it's been an incredible experience. All of you who are members of the task force have done such a great job contributing to these recommendations. So I'm sure I'll say some things at the end of the meeting too. I will keep my remarks brief at this time, but it's good to see you all.
Thank you, Senator Kushner. Senator Flexer.
Representative Porter, I'm all set. Thank you.
You're welcome. Representative Aurora, you have the floor, sir. Did we lose Representative Aurora? Okay, I see. All right. Well, while we wait for him to be seated, I see that we have been joined by my colleague in the House, Representative Fox. We're just opening up, so if you would like to make some welcoming remarks, you are welcome to do so at this time.
Thank you, Representative Porter. I apologize for being late. Glad to be here. Look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Fox. Okay. Representative Aurora. All right, well, he may have had to step away. We do that thing with the multitasking, so I'm sure he's going to be joining us momentarily. I will just say that I'm excited to be here today. Excited for this to be the final recommendations that will be presented, and just want to thank each and every one of you for making the time to participate in this process. And with that, I will go ahead and get started with the Toolkit for Success. So members of the task force to study the state workforce and retiring employees strongly recommend the development and implementation of a Toolkit for Success, planning, retaining, and diversifying a 21st century state workforce. And going forward, we will just refer to it as the Toolkit. The specific goals of the Toolkit are to protect and expand the state's ability to provide essential public services, advance a diverse, inclusive, and equitable workforce that is focused on recruiting and retaining the best employees, conducting proper succession planning, and developing and utilizing existing training programs for a new generation of state employees. And we will begin with the first recommendation, number 1, and we will go through it, and then we can have some discussion. We have already went through the forms of debate and given our ideas and opinions on these. So what I will ask is that in order to keep us on track and to expedite this process, we keep it to a minimum, but absolutely welcome any comments for the record. And with that being said, I will start with item number 1, which is retirement and retention analysis. And the state shall, this is a recommendation that the state shall work with the Office of the State Comptroller and collective bargaining units to rapidly conduct an appropriate estimate of how many people are retiring in each position type at each state agency, inclusive of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches and the higher education system. Further, there shall be an analysis on retention rates of employees conducted by each state agency. It shall be benchmarked against our own year-to-year data, as well as the findings in the state of Connecticut workforce and analysis of representation and compensation equity across gender and race ethnicity, which was a report put out by the state comptroller and Lieutenant Weissowitz. The data shall be reported back to the Office of the Governor, the Legislative Committee or Committees of Cognizance, and the Chief Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer, which we will describe further down in recommendation number 3. And then lastly, under this recommendation, the human resource departments across all branches of state government, and therefore encompassing all state agencies, shall develop a universal exit survey with specific data points to help inform an overall view of the state's workplace conditions. Surveys shall be developed, distributed, and collected by agency human resource departments, and the results shall be reported to the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. And with that, I would ask for a motion. Senator Kushner,
I move acceptance of this recommendation.
and I see that Ms. Nugent, second.
Yes.
All right, and I will open the floor for any comments on this recommendation. All right, seeing none, I will call a voice vote on this. So all in favor, would you please unmute and say yay?
Yay.
Aye.
Yay.
Aye. Yay. All right, all opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Seeing none, this recommendation has passed unanimously. That was recommendation number 1. We'll move on to recommendation number 2, which is reimagining the workforce. We recommend that agency leaders and managers shall formally engage in a strategic plan to examine which positions and position types need to be replaced as is, as a straight fill, which positions need to be replaced with a different type of position because the function has changed, and which positions need to be replaced with a different position because the need has changed based on current state agency needs and current workforce capacity and ability. The process shall involve bargaining unit representatives under the savings and transformation provisions of the CBAC agreement. And that is the second recommendation from the committee, and I would ask for a motion. Please. Representative Aurora, second by Dr. Al-Qadri. Thank you. And open the floor for any comments or discussions. And if I could ask you all just to raise your hand, please, and then I will call on you all. Yes, and first up we have Representative Aurora.
Madam Chair, I think the discussion we had last time, we had kind of focused our discussions on something like this, and I really appreciate this being in the recommendation, and I appreciate all in the workforce, all in the task force who contributed to it and making that an important part of our recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Aurora. Dr. Al-Qadri.
Yeah, thank you, and Senator Kushner, for your leadership on this and for including this recommendation. I have a small recommendation to change a strategic plan to strategic planning, because that is expected to happen at the agency level, not at the statewide. Kind of every agency should be doing that. So it's more than one strategic plan that we're talking about. So saying a strategic plan could be interpreted as, not doing it at the agency level.
Okay, thank you for that recommendation. I will recognize Mr. Hill, and then we'll go back to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a point of clarification. It appears that the toolkit, we have kind of constituent parts of a toolkit, 1 through 4, as it reads in this document, and I also echo the previous 2 speakers as to number 2, and thank you for putting this into the ideas for the toolkit. And I would also agree with Dr. Al-Qadri as with the language change around strategic planning and not identifying a single process, given that we have multiple branches of government and certainly agencies and business units within those.
Yes, and I do concur. So I will put that on the floor at this time to see if all is in agreement with making that minor adjustment. All in favor, if you could just, thumbs up, raise your hand.
Right.
All right. Looks like we have a majority. I'm sorry, was someone speaking? Oh, Sonia gave a thumbs up. And Dr. Al-Qadri, I'm not sure if your hand is still up from previously or you wanted to speak again. You're all set? All right, so we will edit that to make the adjustment that you and Mr. Hill recommended. So with that change, I will go ahead and ask if we can do a roll call. All in favor, if you would unmute and say yay.
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 Okay.
Yay.
Yay.
All right. And all opposed, nay? Anyone abstaining? So that passes unanimously with the amended language. Thank you. And moving on to item number 3, recommendation for diversity and inclusivity and hiring. We recommend diversity goals for state agencies shall be aspirational and mirror the state's population and the workforce that serves them. These goals shall be separate and apart from affirmative action plans that are dictated by the state statute and shall go beyond the statistics of the agency's workforce and be focused on the state's entire racial and ethnic makeup. A chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, which we are calling Chief DEI Officer, position shall be created to oversee that transformative hiring processes take place in state government. This position will report to the governor and the Equity Advisory Committee as described below. So each agency shall address the diversity needs by reviewing the state of Connecticut workforce and analysis of representation and compensation equity across gender and race ethnicity analysis to conduct their own self-assessments. Such assessments shall be used to determine where action plans may be necessary to address any disparities, including a review of recruitment strategies. These assessments shall include, but not be limited to, the following. First, an agency's success in the last 5 years in recruiting and retaining women and people of color into various positions. And 2, an agency's plan for getting to an appropriate and fair balance in replacing vacancies left by retiring employees. These reports shall be submitted to the governor's office, the committees of cognizance, and the legislature, and to the chief DEI officer within 3 months of commencing such review. To further capitalize on this opportunity created by the wave of retirements and point to the importance of diversifying the state workforce, the task force recommends the creation of an equity advisory committee responsible for monitoring whether assessment goals are being met by state agencies. The 11-member committee shall consist of the following: 7 members appointed by bargaining unit representatives and 4 members appointed from the current task force on workforce and retiring employees. 1 appointment by each chair, myself and Senator Kushner, and then 1 appointment by each ranking member, Representative Aurora and Senator Sampson, currently serving in these capacities. The chair of the committee shall be appointed by the co-chairs of the Legislative Committee of Cognizance for the members appointed to the committee. And the committee shall be staffed by the staff of the Legislative Committee of Cognizance and shall meet as prescribed by the chair of the committee. Can I get a motion on this 3rd recommendation, please?
This is Sonia. I move that we proceed with the motion.
Thank you, Sonia. And a second? Second by Monica, Ms. Nugent, thank you. And any comments on this recommendation? Yes, Representative Aurora.
Yeah, I wanted to, I'm very thankful to everyone who worked on this recommendation, as we all definitely, our states could get ahead in the diversity in our workforce. And what I'm really a little disappointed is that it is in one recommendation with the Equity Advisory Committee, because the way the Equity Advisory Committee is structured, it's hard for me to support it. It is primarily, the way political implication is that it is 9-2, one way versus the other. And so, and it's not really, in many ways, it doesn't really work. I wish I could, we kept that as a separate, and if that's a possibility, I would ask the chair to do so, because I'd like to really have a resounding unanimous vote for the diversity initiatives other than this committee, because of its construction and the way it would work. And if this is, Madam Chair, you want to break it up into 2 recommendations, I would have to abstain. But my real motivation is to vote for this diversity recommendation in a unanimous way, by taking out the Equity Advisory Committee in a separate section, which I can then be free to make my concern known there. Thank you, Madam Chair, if you'd indulge me today.
Thank you, Representative Aurora. And I respect your wishes, but I don't think that that is what the intent of this language is, the recommendation. I think that they go together, and I will allow my co-chair to weigh in on that. But I do believe that the way it is written is the way we should vote on it. Senator Kushner?
I do agree with that. And I think it's unwise to look at this committee construction as partisan in any way. Because I think that, first of all, it assumes that members appointed by the unions would necessarily be Democrats or Republicans. And I think that my own experience in the labor movement is that we have Republicans and we have Democrats, and it is not, the labor movement is not strictly one party system. I think that this isn't a case for partisanship. We're looking at how do we make sure that we are creating a committee that is invested in these issues of inclusion and having members of the existing bargaining units. I think we're saying we want to hear from the workers themselves in this case. And I think that's the most important voice. Obviously, we added the 4 members from this committee, from this task force, because we think, I've been so impressed with the members of this task force showing leadership and understanding. And a number of you are really experts in addressing these issues. And so we want to make sure we don't lose that continuity, that intentionality about what we're trying to do at this moment. So, I support the chair's position that we should vote on it together, because it's really about making sure that the recommendation we're putting forth for taking advantage of this moment, maybe it's an unfortunate moment where we're seeing we're going to have so many retirements, but there is that question about taking advantage of this moment where we can be more intentional about our hiring practices so that we improve our inclusivity and our diversity at this moment. So I'd like to see us keep them together and also not view this as a partisan committee at all.
Thank you, Senator Kushner. Representative Aurora?
Madam Chair, the breaking it up into 2 pieces does not really do any harm to the recommendation. It just provides the ability to send a stronger message on the fact how much I'm supportive of the diversity initiative. And whether we can all say words, but the way this is written is really very extremely partisan, and I don't think we need to discuss that here. It's just the way it is. Just by saying something doesn't change something. Black is black and red is red and blue is blue. And so I still feel that it's unfortunate that you would not want to do so, because it would make no difference whatsoever. Indeed, these are 9-10 recommendations go as a part of or 6 recommendations go as a part of one task force study report. And unless or until really there is some other reason, I don't see why, I'm pressing one more time I'm requesting one more time to see if we could do that so that I could vote my heart on everything else, but the only one thing which I feel is unfair from a point of view. But as they say, you're the chair and I'm the ranking, so I will respectfully agree with whatever you say. But at this point, I would still request you to break those 2 up.
Thank you, Representative Aurora, and I will respectfully ask that you respect our wishes in saying that we would like to keep those together for the express purposes. Next up, we have Dan Callahan. Mr. Callahan, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to follow up on both the previous speakers, Senator Kushner and Representative Aurora. I do share Representative Aurora's question on the makeup of the committee, not so much on partisanship, but on the lack of managerial or executive members on that committee. I think, Senator Kushner said this is, despite the challenges that we're going to have with all the retirements, this is also an opportunity for the future workforce. And I do totally support the inclusiveness and diversity that's mentioned in the first part, but without the executive presence there or managerial presence, I think you're leaving something out that really needs to be part of the collaborative process as we go forward. So I do share the same concern with the committee makeup, not the same concern, but for a different reason. I feel that the lack of management being on that committee will not work to the best interests of the state. So I respectfully want to add that also too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Mr. Livingston, you have the floor.
Yeah, just a couple of quick points. First of all, on the partisan question, I just want to echo the comments that the union members would be placed on because they are state employees, frontline workers, actually doing the work. The CI or the new position would report jointly to the governor, who is also placed on there as the executive, as the boss, not as a political appointment. We've had the last 4 governors, we've had 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and I don't know who the next 4 governors will be. But the reason, as I see it, to have this officer, the equity and diversity officer, report to the governor and this committee that is primarily made up of people who are actually charged with performing the work, the administration as the employer and the union members as the employees. So I just think that, to the extent the committee is partisan, it is because of the appointments from the 2 chairs of this committee and the ranking members, and that is absolutely even. Which, as you know, is not the normal legislative practice. Normally, the majority party would get more appointments, and this is actually designed to make this a perfectly bipartisan group. So, I would strongly disagree with the idea that this is a partisan group at all.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Duly noted. I do believe that we have come up with a solution. So, Senator Kushner, would you like to? Yes.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't clear, but when we were writing this, I was assuming that the people that would be appointed from the task force would be managerial employees, and maybe that wasn't clear or articulated, but I think that's 10. And so if we want to articulate that clearly, that might help with this discussion, because, I have looked to the managerial employees that have participated in this task force as sort of the prime movers of every recommendation we're making today. And I appreciate your input on that. And so I would want you to continue to be part of that process. So maybe that would help clarify our intentions.
I agree. And I think that it should be explicitly written so that it's clear. There's clarity around those appointments. Representative Aurora.
Yeah, perhaps in the interest of what Mr. Livingston mentioned, and I fully agree that they're members of a workforce which have different different ideological affiliations. So that's not a problem. Why not? It's who appoints which is a problem. So if we would like to say, well, let's just have 11 members, 6 appointed by the chair, 5 appointed by ranking members, and constrained to be appointed from amongst those who are part of the bargaining, 3 from those who are amongst the represented or members of the unions, and 2 from who are members of the management group, so that we can make sure that from a point of view of a political aspect, that is the way it normally should be. At the same time, from a point of view of representativeness, as Mr. Callahan suggested, would be both from the bargaining units and the managerial managerial workforce. So that would be another solution if one wanted to be fair about it. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Aurora. Senator Kushner.
I really would reject any efforts to change the construction of this. I think clarifying that we wanted to have managerial employees represented on this is enough. This is not a partisan committee in any way. It is about trying to get input from the workforce that is so intimate with all of what goes on. And I think that there is general agreement, regardless of party, that we need to be more inclusive and have more diversity represented. That's been the opinion of this task force from the beginning. So I think trying to make this a political committee is a real mistake. And I don't think anyone had that intention in the way this was proposed. And I think by making it more of your typical legislative committees, as was suggested, is a bad idea, because it will take us away from what we need to accomplish here, which is to forget about the politics and to forget about partisanship and just focus on what was said by all the members of this task force, is that we need to be sure that our workforce reflects the diversity of our population here in the state. And I hope we can stay focused on that.
Thank you, Senator Kushner, and I do agree. And I always say the people closest to the problems are closest to the solutions, and I believe that was the intent in the way we formed this committee and these appointments. Representative Aurora for the third time.
Madam Chair actually was up from last time. I'm quite disappointed, but it's what it is. What do you do? There's a very political act here, and just being said as being a non-political act. That's still rubbing salt on the wound. But we'll go along. Let's keep moving.
Right. Let's just beg to differ and remain respectful, and we'll vote on this with the amendment being the amended language reflecting that the 4 members are managerial employees of the task force that will be appointed. And with that being said, I will ask for, well, we did the motion in the second, so I need for everyone that is in favor to please unmute and say yay.
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 Okay.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? So we have 1 nay and 1 abstention. This passes with the amended language that was noted earlier. Moving on to recommendation number 4, professional development and workforce pipeline. The task force recommends the implementation of a strategy to ensure that there is appropriately planned training, professional development, and funding for each state agency with specific programs for managers and exempt staff. There should be heavy concentration of extending partnerships with local universities and colleges for structured leadership programs. Each agency shall provide a list of such programs that currently exist, the extent of engagement of employees in these programs over the last 3 years, and for example, numbers of those enrolled and completed such programs, and plans to create or increase engagement in such programs in the near future. Training shall be developed and completed within a predetermined time frame and reported back to the Committee of Cognizance at the Legislature, the Equity Advisory Committee, and the Chief DEI Officer. The state shall also provide a list of existing pathway programs, such as high school pathway programs, vo-tech school pathways, internships, and postgraduate fellowships, modeled after other federal and state programs that encourage the training to workforce or college to workforce transition for a range of state employee classes and positions. Within the list, the extent of engagement in these programs, agencies participating, and number of people involved in these programs shall be included. Lastly, the state shall consider partnerships with nonprofits and community advocates who could aid in the development of a paid internship program. An individual's ability to participate in a program unpaid is a direct barrier to the advancement of their career and disproportionately affects individuals of color. In trying to create a more equitable workforce across our state agencies, it is imperative that we work to ensure that access to these opportunities are not determined by factors such as social economic status. With that being said, could I please get a motion?
I make a motion to support this, strong motion to support this endeavor.
Thank you,
second that.
Sonia. Second by Mr. Callahan, and open for discussion or comments. Seeing none, at this time, I will go ahead and take a voice vote. All in favor? I'm sorry. Let me I'm
Yay.
sorry, Lisa. I'm sorry, Lisa. You can't see because you're on the phone. Representative Aurora has raised his hand, so I'm gonna acknowledge him at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to speak, in support. I think we discussed several ideas here during the committee hearings or during the task force hearings. There were some ideas also about programs for managerial development. I wish we would also include that. I think the discussion we had, perhaps with many in the committee, including Dr. Al-Qadri, about how some of these programs which involve management kind of having access to programs, and I had mentioned around the world, would be very powerful for as a professional development tool. But nevertheless, I support this wholeheartedly. But I would like that to be included as well, if possible, as an amendment. But nevertheless, I'm very supportive of this clause and thankful to all who have put it forward. Thank you, Madam. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Aurora. I see my co-chair has her hand up, so Senator Kushner, I will give you the floor at this time.
I just wanted to point out that I believe the first sentence, that is the lead-off sentence in that first paragraph, is intended to encourage the development of more training and professional development for managerial and exempt staff. So I think we led with that because we actually all agree that that's something that's very important. So I think it is in there, and I think it did come from.
Well, thank you. We're thinking alike once again, so I will leave it there. I won't belabor that issue. And if there are no further comments or questions, I will ask all in favor to please unmute and say yay.
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 All opposed, nay. Abstentions? All right, that recommendation number 4 has passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to recommendation number 5, which is equity and managerial benefits. The task force recommends further actions be taken to help alleviate salary compression and inversion amongst managerial state employees, a major deterrent in recruiting and retaining managerial level employees in state service. Actions shall include, but not be limited to, the following. First recommendation under equity and managerial benefits would be amending subsection P of section 5-200 of the Connecticut General Statute to read as follows. P, when such authority is not otherwise conferred by statute, the commissioner shall issue orders to provide that 1, executive or judicial department employees exempt from the classified service or not included in any prevailing bargaining unit contract, except unclassified employees of any board of trustees of the constituent units of higher education, be granted rights, benefits, and wages with movement and salary ranges not less than those granted to employees in the classified service or covered under such contracts. Or 2, retirement benefits for state employee exempt from classified service or not included in any prevailing bargaining unit contract be adjusted to provide retirement benefits for such employees, which are the same as those frequently provided under the terms of approved bargaining unit contracts in effect at the time of such adjustment. When such authority is not otherwise conferred by statute, the Board of Trustees of any constituent unit of the state system of higher education may issue orders to provide that the unclassified employees of such board be granted rights and benefits not less than those granted to employees of the board who are covered under a prevailing bargaining unit contract. Where there is a conflict between an order granting such rights and benefits and any provision of the general statute, such order shall prevail. And I would ask for a motion on this first recommendation under section 5.
I move for a motion.
Motion by Mr. Callahan, second by Monica. Ms. Nugent. Any discussion on this first part? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and move on to item number 2. Did I see Representative Aurora? You have your hand up? You're muted, Representative Aurora.
My apology, I'm on 2 or 3 Zooms as well. So I just wanted to see, are we commenting on section 1 and 2 separately, or would you want to go through all of them and then make some comments together?
We could do that. I think we could do that. Just I'll go all the way through and then we'll come back and take comments, but I will recognize Mr. Hill, who has his hand up as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Similar point of clarification, will a vote be taken on each one of the subsections of number 5, or is the intention to have a vote in whole?
I would stick with what we've been doing with the vote in whole. Or is there any objections to that? Is, I guess, the question I should ask now.
If I may, Madam Chair, just they are similar, but there are certainly different components to this, and I speak for myself, may have different feelings on individual components of it.
Senator Kushner.
I would just urge that I know some of our members do have other obligations, and I know we've had thorough discussion of them. If it would facilitate the voting to have separate voting, if we could move through them quickly, if people would really keep their remarks short, then I would be fine with that. Because I think what's happening here is some people want to vote for some of them and don't want to vote for others. And I think that's fine, but I would ask then that you really keep comments brief, so that we can actually get through all of them before 4, because there are some folks who are going to have to leave.
I agree. And I mean, they are final recommendations. So that is the point that I want to make as well. We have had extensive conversations, discussions, debates on all of this, and this is the final product. So if that works for everyone, then we can vote on number 1, number 2, going through so that we can address the issue that some of our members are having. And with that being said, I will start with number 1. All in favor, please say yay. Yay.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yay.
Aye, yay, aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions?
Abstention.
So 1 nay, 1 abstention, and that passes. Thank you. We will move on to number 2. An immediate statutory change that requires a reduction in the contributions of managerial employees to healthcare benefits so that they are in line with the current levels of the employees they supervise, for example, CBAC bargaining unit employees. And also to ensure that the levels of contribution remain the same for all employees into the future. That would be recommendation number 2 under section 5. I would ask for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hill, second by Mrs. Nugent. And the floor is open. Representative Aurora, is your hand up for number 2? Is that from the last time?
No, that's from last time.
Okay. All right, seeing none, I would ask for all that are in favor to please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Any abstentions?
Same, please.
1 abstention. That recommendation passes. Thank you. And we will move on to number 3. A statutory change to subsection G of section 5-220 of the Connecticut General Statute that defines managerial employee. This change would allow larger groups of managerial employees the right to collectively bargain. The change shall read as follows. G, managerial employee, quote unquote, means any individual in a position in which the principal functions are characterized by not fewer than two of the following, provided one of such two functions shall be as specified in subdivision 4 of this subsection. Number 1, responsibility for direction of a subunit or a facility of a major division of an agency or assignment to an agency head staff. 2, development, implementation, and evaluation of goals and objectives consistent with agency mission and policy. Number 3, participation in the formulation of agency policy, or number 4, a major role in the administration of collective bargaining agreements or major personnel decisions, or both, including staffing, hiring, firing, evaluation, promotion, and training of employees. Effectively, this change makes the definition of a manager be inclusive of number 4, and if the position is not tied to 4 and one other subsection, that position is not a managerial position. Senator Kushner, is that a motion? You're muted.
Yes, it is a motion.
Okay, and second by Ms. Nugent. Any comments? Senator Kushner?
I would just like to frame this piece a little bit, because I know we have heard from a few people that there's concern about this and what it would mean to getting the work done, which I think is a big, a valid concern. But I do want to point out that I truly believe that we would not be in this position of inversion and compression and, mismatched health benefits if those managerial employees were part of a collective bargaining unit or had an organization to represent them and express their views. I know from my previous experience representing a large group of state employees here in Connecticut who were not covered by the state health plan, that they formed a union precisely because their concerns about healthcare had not been addressed. And as a result, as soon as we paid attention to it, we found that we could put them in a better program with better benefits and only slightly higher costs, if higher costs at all. And it's because no one had paid attention. There are always so many demands on management that they didn't have a way to get to the table and address the issue. And now we find ourselves having to legislate about this. I don't think that would have been the case if we had an expanded bargaining unit rights. I do think that it exists amongst municipal employees, a broader definition. I think it exists in other states. And I feel like we are behind the times with this. As for concern about workers, managerial employees getting the job done in times of labor strife, I just want to say that there couldn't be any greater moment, in my opinion, of demoralization by managerial employees than that occurs when you're being paid less and you have to pay more for your health than the people you're supervising. So I think they have been subjected to demoralization and labor strife without having a union in a much greater way. And I have confidence that if we were to enable them to organize and have collective bargaining rights, that you would find even when there are disagreements at the bargaining table, workers, they step up and they get the job done, and particularly state workers. So I don't think there's a downside to this proposal. I would strongly urge that we adopt it.
Thank you, Senator Kushner. Mr. Callahan.
Yes, I would like to address this particular one. I did talk about it. I think, the Senator Kushner's comments, certainly the last 2 decades really have been demoralizing based on the fact that managers did not have rights to the same benefits and salaries, which we've dealt with it in the previous. And I thought to codify that in the statute is a great thing that this committee recommended in number 1. That said, I've been around a long time, through the 90s and through labor strife and with particular unions. And I don't think that now that managerial piece is addressed, I think that addresses the concerns of managers. Managers, despite the demoralization, have still carried their weight over the last 2 decades. Because of that dedication. And again, to just have executive appointees and not have people who know how the government works and how to work through a myriad of statutes and regulations, puts managers and the people who are held accountable at a disadvantage for the people that have to answer to the citizens. So I do, unfortunately, I don't know that I can agree on this particular item, but those are my concerns. I'll try to keep that as brief as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Next up, we have Dr. Al-Qadri.
So, I mean, I agree with this based on what Senator Kushner said, and I support what she said. And it's, look, we've tried not giving them bargaining rights in the past, and look at the mess we got ourselves into in terms of salary inversion and in terms of a lot of other things. So I want to say let's try giving them bargaining rights and see what happens. That couldn't be worse than not giving them bargaining rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think I may have raised this previously, but maybe first just to echo Mr. Callahan's comments. I think we have done a lot to address the concerns of managerial employees with both the actions of the executive branch, and actually all of the branches of government last summer of 2021, and then with these further actions, particularly around the benefit costs. Our structure within the judicial branch is different than that of the predominant base of employees in the executive branch, in that we don't have politically appointed commissioners and deputy commissioners and so forth. So we have 70 facilities throughout the state where we, have in some facilities small numbers of employees, and in some facilities large numbers of employees, and our ability to have management staff appropriately dispersed across those it actually has shrunk over the last several years, particularly with the movement, which we didn't oppose in 2017, 18, and 19 to unionize, I think right around 50% of our remaining management staff during that period. So for those reasons, and really having to do with the unique circumstances of being a separate branch of government, not having that political appointee structure, I will likely not be supporting this particular part of number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Mrs. Sari, you have the floor.
Yes, I just wanted to say I'm in support of this, just reaffirming that the language be inclusive of directors. And so that I guess to the last comment that Mr. Hill made, considering that there are some branches that don't have managers, or they may have different names for individuals doing supervisory roles.
And the recommendation, I'm sorry, was to add directors, you said?
Yes, correct. I apologize. I'm near my son's school and not getting good service, but yes, that's correct.
Senator Kushner.
I think it's clear that unless a director has meets two of those criteria, a director would be included. And so I do believe most directors would be included. I think it's probably rare that there's a director who has that level of hiring and development of policy that is incorporated into the statute.
Mr. Sari, was that suffice? And I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. Sonia? I'm not sure if we lost her. Up next, we have Mr. Callahan. Is that right? Or is your hand still up?
What's
You're muted, Mr. Callahan.
another t-shirt? I just want to clarify on Dr. Al-Quadroy's comments. The managers do have the right to bargain, and they have successfully bargained through the last 15 years with the 2 prongs of the 4. So I think I just want a clarification on the language, because at the bottom it says they need to meet all 4. And Senator Kushner just said 2 of the 4, which is a very low bar right now. To make it 4 is to make, to me, having been, before the labor board, before in various capacities, it would mean that all managers could unionize in effect, except maybe human resources people under that statute. So is it 4 or is it 2 with this recommendation?
It is actually, that's a good question. And just for clarity, it is, the 4 is speaking of the 4th one. So it's 2, but the 4th one needs to be included in those 2. So it could be number 4 and any other one.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome, Mr. Callahan. Mr. Spencer, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Mr. Callahan's comments here. There's been significant improvements in work to address the salary inversion issue. And at this point, I don't know if this is necessary, as Dr. Al-Quadroy has suggested, trying this, maybe there's no harm from it, but I think this is not something that will be reversed if there is harm that comes from this. So I think this is something that needs to be thought about, and more time needs to be given to the efforts that have already existed both in this task force and prior to on the salary inversion issue before we do something this significant. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Spencer. And the only thing I'll say is that, from what we've heard and what's been reported throughout this task force is that there is a need for this, that whatever has been done has not been adequate to address what's going on with the managers. And nothing's ever permanent. Let me just also say that. We have the ability to come back and repeal or amend any piece of legislation that we put through. Ms. Nugent, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to this a little bit. So I think a lot of the points that have been made are valid in that many managers have been able to join collective. Sorry.
That's okay.
Have been able to join collective bargaining units. But there is a large group that have not and have been, it's okay, and have been systematically excluded from the same benefits as other state employees. And I think this is an important step to kind of get the equity that's, and I will also say that as a recommendation, right, like this is only the first step in a very long process. And if there are concerns about having additional conversations or flushing this language out even further, I think that can be further done through the committee process moving forward. So I would urge, support for this and to continue the discussion and see if there are possibly different things that can be recommended, whether it's maybe not changing the definition, maybe there's another way to approach this as well. But I strongly support this change, and I think it's an important one. And I think it'll do a lot for morale in terms of the managerial class as well, to know that they are being recognized as equal partners. Yeah, that's what I have.
Thank you, Ms. Nugent. And I agree with all of what you just stated. I think we should look at it as an aspirational goal that we're taking to address the issue at hand. And you're right. This is a first step and many steps towards the process of making it into policy and onto the chamber floor. So there's still room to further this discussion. So I would also ask that you all support this so that we can move the conversation forward. And seeing no further hands, I would ask that all who are in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
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 I'm counting 3 nays, is that correct?
Hey,
I'm sorry. I'll ask you the nays to please raise their hands. I just want to get this right. And everybody's bouncing around. It looks like 3. There we go. Thank you. You actually used the raise hand. All right. So that does pass.
I think it was 4 no's.
Well, I was looking at the hands that went up and I saw 3.
But Mr. Callahan has his hand raised as opposed to his.
Okay.
Oh, my live hand, sorry.
Okay. Well, even with the 4 nays, that still passes. So thank you. And moving on to our last recommendation, number 6, immediate actions to address the retirement cliff. So lastly, it should be noted that there are actions that can be taken right now to help with the burden of the impending retirements and the chronic understaffing already occurring across many state agencies. These recommendations shall be implemented as soon as possible to ensure the success of the toolkit and are as follows. 1, require state agencies to fill all positions to levels appropriated in the 2022-23 biennial budget. 2, require all agencies to adopt continuous recruitment practices with authority to fill positions without DAS or OPM approval for critical shortage positions as appropriated in the 2022-23 biennial budget. Number 3, recommend that the Budget Reconciliation Act require refilling of positions caused by retirements and other vacancies in fiscal year 2023. Number 4, direct the governor's administration to seek CBAC approval to allow all employees to continue working beyond the July 1, 2022 deadline without the applicable cost of living adjustment, COLA, or retiree healthcare changes until 1 month following the hiring of their replacement for the purpose of training and transitioning their role. And the last, direct the governor's administration to engage with CBAC to find a way of reducing the retirement incentive caused by the 2022 changes in a way that would not materially decrease the savings attributable to such changes. Can I get a motion, please? Senator Kushner, and a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Callahan. Any comments? All right, seeing none, I would ask all in favor to please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Abstentions? We have 1 nay, and this last recommendation passes.
You have 2 nays.
I'm sorry. I think it would be best if you guys could use your raise hand feature so that I could get that accurate. Thank you. Okay, so we have Representative Aurora and Mr. Spencer voting nay. This last recommendation, number 6, passes. And I do believe that that brings us to the close of our business today in this task force. And I just really want to take this opportunity to thank you all for all the hard work that went in. I know that we didn't see eye to eye on everything, but I do believe that we did it earnestly and fervently and with good intentions. And I'm really pleased at the product that we have moving forward. And I just want to reinstate that this is not final. It was the final recommendations for the task force, but there is a process through the committee where we all will still be able to weigh in and have considerations on how this is shaped before it actually gets drafted into policy language. So again, I thank you all for making the time, and I will now give Senator Kushner the opportunity for some closing remarks to be followed by Representative Aurora.
Thank you. I just want to say that this has been an incredible experience for me. I really appreciate the input, particularly of our managerial employees that served on this committee. And you really brought a lot of the issues forward in a way that was really productive and useful for us. I came to be an elected official, being a private citizen, and I've only been in office 3 years. And what's amazing is how much gets done at the state level through state employees and people like yourselves. you keep our state running, and you do your very best. And it has been such a pleasure to be on this committee with you all and to hear your really legitimate concerns. You know, we may have had some disagreements, very few, but a few disagreements about how to solve the problems. But what is clear to me is that we all agree that the problems need to be solved. And, you know, I really appreciate that. And it's been a great experience for me. I would just ask that all of you that participated and voted for these, that you help us get them through so that they become a reality, because it is a long road to getting them into statute, and we really need your help and support in getting the job done. So thank you for doing all the hard work, and we look forward to working with you throughout the session.
Thank you, Senator Kushner. Representative Fox.
Again, to echo the comments made by yourself, Representative Porter, and Senator Kushner. Been great work by all the members of the committee, and appreciate the insights and valuable opportunities and direction the committee has gone. Thank you very much. Look forward to days ahead working with you further. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Fox. Senator Flexer. All right. Well, we all know she has a beautiful little baby girl at home, so I'm sure she may be sidetracked with her. So I will go ahead at this time and just give you one last heartfelt thank you with great appreciation, and look forward to doing some work with you all in the future. And please remember what the good senator said. We still need you to get this done and across the finish line.
Representative Porter, I think you didn't need to overlook. I don't think Representative Aurora had the opportunity for closing.
I am so sorry. Oh my gosh. You know what? I'm tired. Charge it to my head, not my heart, Representative Aurora. I saved the best for last. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe it's a Freudian slip, I would say, but that's all right. That's all right.
Not at all.
You know, I had a fantastic time working with this group, and we did some good work, right? You know, lots of really good points came up, lots of things which I never thought, you know, or were not in my realm of experience. I learned, and I thank you all so much for the time and for the effort towards a really important cause. The retirement is a very, very difficult issue, and we got to, you know, resolve it. And obviously there were many side issues which came about as well, which we did attend. As Senator Kushner mentioned, this is just or Senator Porter or Representative Porter mentioned, this is just a beginning in some sense. And for many of us, including me, you know, this is going to be a lot of working on these issues. You know, I wish some of these recommendations were done in such a way that, you know, I didn't have to do any work either, but I guess I will have to. But I look forward to really putting these parts of these, as we discussed, working on these in the legislative session. But once again, this has been an incredible amount of work done from all of you. With different perspectives, very different perspectives I saw within this group. And I thank you, you know, truly thank you for all the effort and for all the energy which went into. And I look forward to actually leveraging many of you as I go forward working on these during the session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Aurora. You're right. Teamwork makes the dream work. So thank you for keeping this dream alive. You all have a great day.
Great. Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.